Good afternoon, everybody. Buon pomeriggio. This is Rose Mazza. Welcome to my cooking show. And today's recipe is going to be risotto with shrimp or scampi. This is very easy to do. Just prep all your ingredients and then it won't take you maybe half an hour to do. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the rice that I'm using. It's Arborio Rice. This rice is the only rice that you want to use when you make this dish. Why? It's an Italian rice, first of all. It's rich in starch, and that's what you want because the end product is gonna look like rice pudding. It's very creamy, but we're not gonna add any eggs or milk or anything like that. It's just the type of rice that it is. So if you don't have this rice, you can purchase it at Strip in Pittsburgh, but sometimes I also find it at Kroger or Walmart. Don't buy the ones that are whole grain or seasoned, or it has to be plain Arborio rice. We're going to be cooking for 3 people. So rice makes a lot, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to cook half a cup for each person. So there's 1 cup, a little bit too much, okay, and then another half a cup, because this makes quite a bit, okay, and that's all we want. So again, a reminder, Arborio rice, and you can find it at Walmart or at the Strip. Okay, I am also going to be using about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Get a good olive oil. So I'm going to turn my stove to medium high, and I'm going to toast this. Okay, you need to toast it a little bit. Why you need to toast it? So you can achieve that nuttiness, okay? And when you do this, I advise you to stay right here because it will burn if you're not paying attention. It's something that takes only a few minutes to do, but if you are not right on top of it, it will burn, okay? While this is toasting, I'm going to tell you that I have about 4 to 5 cups of chicken broth. Now, if you make your own chicken broth, that's fine. If you don't want to make it, you can buy the carton, the low sodium. I use chicken, okay? And it has to be pretty hot while you're doing this, so that's on. So I am going to chop a few sprigs of parsley. This is the parsley that I planted in my pots outside. I don't have a garden. I wish I could, but I'm not much of a gardener, but I do like my herbs. I have basil, parsley, sage, mint. I like to grow those. And I'm going to tell you where I get my plants. My plants come from my school, Liberty High School. Mrs. McCauley does a good job with the students, and every year I buy my flowers there, and I also buy all my herbs. And these are on my front porch, so I always have them ready. So I'm going to give my rice a stir, and if you were here, you can start smell how toasty this is getting. And like I said, you want it toasted because it brings out the flavor of the rice, the nuttiness of the rice. And this rice is so plump that it takes a little bit of toasting. You know, you have to do that. So this looks like it's almost done here. Okay. More, maybe another minute. When you see that the little kernels of the rice are starting to turn brown, maybe you lower your heat. Yes, they are. See? Can you see? have to look because we don't want to burn it, okay? Remember that, we do not want to burn it. Okay, at this time, I am gonna put this right here for a minute. I'm gonna adjust my heat because it has to be perfect. And while my broth is warming up, I got it at medium high right now. And see, you can see how it's nice and toasted. See? Okay, so we are good to go here. So what am I gonna do? I am going to slowly add this broth. And you can hear it sizzle. The first time I'm going to add, perhaps I need to lower this. And you stir. And you see that it quickly evaporates. Okay, this is what you want. So you keep stirring like you were making a custard, but you really aren't. And I think I'm gonna add another ladle of broth, and you keep stirring. That is a little bit time consuming because if you ever make pudding from scratch or a custard or a coconut cream pie, then you know what I'm talking about. It takes patience and it takes time. So if you want something good, you have to have patience. Otherwise, you will go to Kroger and get a frozen dinner. But this is not what this is. This is Southern Italian cooking. My mother used to cook this for my dad all the time. This was one of his favorite dishes. And you might as well say my father was a vegetarian. He didn't like red meat that much. He didn't like the seafood, even though in Italy we lived about 30 minutes away from the beach on either side. He liked seafood, but not that much. So you can make this plain, the way he liked it. You can make it with meat, any type of, like, you know, veal or lamb, cut up real small. You can make it with ground beef or ground veal. You can make it with shrimp. Today we're going to use shrimp. You can make it with scallops, lobster, crab meat, any type of seafood you like. Or you can use a combination of shrimp and lobster, crab meat and scallops, whatever you like. There is not really a one set recipe, okay, for this, as far as the ingredients go. So my first two ingredients are the rice, of course, and the broth. So I'm going to put about 3 ladles of this broth here, and I'm going to turn it to medium low. So while this is on medium low, I'm going to show you my other ingredients. I have 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a small white onion. You can also use leeks, or you can also use scallions. I just happen to have that, and that's what I'm going to use. So in my other pan, and I'm going to turn this on and start sauteing them, okay? While this is going on, back here I got some portobello mushrooms. They're the ones that I just love. You know, the little ones, when I make a dish like this, because when you cook them, they kind of turn to pretty much nothing. But if I'm cooking a meat dish and I want to use portobello, then I buy the big ones, okay? So these, I'm going to sweat them a little bit, okay? And what do I mean by that? As you know, mushrooms have a lot of moisture. I do not want to add anything to it until they get nice and warm and start sweating, and then we'll add the other ingredients, okay? So I'm going to go back to my rice. Make sure that your broth is nice and warm. You know, it doesn't have to be boiling. You can turn it down if it boils, and I am going to continue stirring my rice. Okay, this smells good already, and as you can see, the rice is starting to plump up really well, and that's what we want. There's still some moisture in there, so I'm not gonna add any more broth until all that is gone, because that's what makes it creamy. Okay, I fix this dish for Louis quite often. It's one of his favorite, and we use lots of seafood, or sometimes we don't put anything in it, and it just depends how I feel and what I want to do that day. Okay, I think everybody loves risotto. Allora, parliamo un po' in italiano. Questa è una pentola, questo si chiama riso arborio, il brodo, broth, rice, pan, cipolla means onions, olio di oliva means olive oil. Qui abbiamo funghi portobello. That's an Italian mushroom. So I'm going to lower the heat on that very, very low. Okay? And they're starting to sweat here a little bit. Okay? That's what we want. Okay, back to the rice. You never want to leave the rice, because that's the important ingredient. If you burn it, then you're going to have to start all over, and we don't want to do that. My onions, I'm checking out the onions. I'm going to raise them a little bit because they are not doing much. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my mushrooms off. And since I'm working with an electric stove, they are still cooking, but they're not going to burn. Okay? And as you can see, they're sweating, they're taking all that moisture out, and that's what we want to do. Okay? We're back to the rice. Keep stirring. Usually when I make this, Louis' job is to stir this rice for me while I'm doing all the other stuff. Okay, I think it's time for me to add some more broth. Okay. This is coming out really nice. I can see how much the rice is plumping up. See? And you see the water, how creamy it is, the broth. As the rice cooks, it becomes creamier and creamier, and that's what we want. When I come home from school, usually it takes me about 35 minutes to get dinner on the table if I'm making this dish, because usually I have all the stuff in my pantry. Maybe I need to go get some mushrooms. And if I don't have the mushrooms, it's not necessary to put the mushrooms in there. But it is necessary to put, you know, the broth and the rice and the onions and you know, but we can even eat this plain. So when you do this, you have a nice salad. If it's summertime, I usually make a cucumber salad with an Italian vinaigrette, or tomato salad is good, or any other salad you like is good with this. I'm going to leave it to your imagination, whatever you want to prepare, if this is your main dish. And trust me, this is so filling that you really don't need to eat anything else with this. Okay, my onions are starting to saute. And by the way, I put a little bit of garlic in here and a little bit of garlic in there. So now, I'm going to add my olive oil to my mushrooms. And you don't need a whole bunch, couple tablespoons. Like I said, a couple tablespoons of olive oil in here, see, and in here. And this will be perfect. I want to talk about my herbs. My basil this year did very well. I always buy the Italian sweet basil, and then at the end of the season, or I cut it every week and I freeze it. The same with the parsley. And then in the winter time, I have fresh herbs. Now I also make pesto with this because I usually end up with a lot of basil. So I make pesto and I jar it and put it in the refrigerator, and whenever I have pesto spaghetti, it's right there done for me. And next time, or in another show, I will show you how to make basil pesto. I also use pine nuts in mine, but you don't have to. If you have an allergy to nut, you don't have to use pine nuts. I think everything is coming along fine. I'm going to turn my mushrooms back on low, and I'm going to go back to my rice. Okay, I'm going to add more broth and continue stirring. You sort of have to multitask when you do this because you have 3 things going, actually 4 things going, and you gotta have to, be careful that nothing burns, because if onions and garlic burn, then they don't taste very well. So you kind of have to babysit, if you know what I mean. Okay, back to this. I watched my mother make this all the time, and my job was to stir the rice. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes and we're gonna add some more. Okay, so now I'm going to salt my onions a little bit and my mushrooms. I'm also going to grind some peppercorns. I like to grind my own. Yeah, it smells good, just like that. And I'm going to add un pizzico, a dash here, and a dash in here, and a little dash in here, but we still need more, so I'm just going to put this aside, okay? So we are going to stir. It's beginning to smell good in here. All right, we're going to add a couple more. Now, if you think that you're gonna need more broth, you can add a cup of broth if you have it, or a cup of water in there. And I'm gonna raise it up so it gets nice and hot. Okay. Because rice, it takes a lot of liquid to really cook rice, and because this is arborio rice, it's a little bit thicker, and it takes a little bit longer to cook. Sometimes 5 cups is enough, sometimes it's not. Okay, my onions are where I want them to be, so I'm gonna turn these off. Okay, because then we have another ingredient that goes in here. So I'm gonna take them off the fire, and I'm gonna put them right here. Okay, I'm gonna move my mushrooms here so I don't have to reach all the way back there. And I'm gonna work on them while the rice is cooking. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the rice, make sure it doesn't stick. Now, the word for rice in Italian is riso. By the way, the word riso also means smile. So it's one of those words that has a double meaning. And in our English language, we also have words like that. I always tell my students that they don't believe me. And then I have to give them examples because they want proof of everything. And I'm happy when they do that because I know they're learning. So, risotto, when you add an infix, or no, I'm sorry, a suffix to the word in Italian, it can either be bigger or smaller. It just it's whatever word letters you put at the end of the word. Now the word is riso. Risotto means that it's going to be plump, and it's going to get big, so it's going to be like a big rice. The Italian language is very, very descriptive. It's a Romance language. It's very musical. What do I mean by a Romance language? Well, it derives from Latin. There's only a few of them. Spanish is the other Romance language. Latin, Spanish, Italian, French, Romanian, and Portuguese. Those are, I think, the only Romance languages. They all derive from Latin. So if you took Spanish or French or Italian or Latin when you were in high school, you know what I'm talking about. But the Italian language is the closest one to Latin, because before Italy was Italy, it was called Etrusca, and they spoke Latin. That's why if you're Catholic, up until the Second Vatican Council, when you went to church, it was all in Latin. And so pretty much everybody, not that everybody knew Latin, but everybody knew what was going on during Mass. I'm going to put those over because they're done. And I'm going to continue with my rice. Okay? Il riso sembra proprio magnifico, eccellente. E ha un profumo proprio da morire. Vorrei mangiare adesso, anche se non è cotto. I want to eat it now, even though it's not cooked yet, but I'm getting hungry. So we'll keep adding a couple more ladle. And at this point, I don't think it's going to burn. because it's got so much moisture in it, and I keep adding the broth, but still I don't want to walk away and forget about it. Okay, we're going to give it a chance to kind of steam, and then perhaps we'll be back in about 10 minutes, because this should be done in 10 minutes. Okay guys, we're back. This is our final result. This is what it looks like. I told you it would make a lot. This is enough for 4 people, really, you know. So how are we gonna serve this? Well, we are going to dish some of it out in here. We're gonna garnish it with some more Parmigiano Reggiano, and really, if you like, you can drizzle a little bit of olive oil in here, just raw. It doesn't have to be cooked, crudo, and garnish it with some basil or parsley, and then you're ready to go. So I am going to get another little spoon, and we're going to taste this, okay? The only way you can eat risotto, my father said, was with a spoon. Don't mess around with your fork, because you want to get every little piece of goodness that is in here. So I got some rice, some shrimp, some parsley, and here I go. It's just wonderful. It's amazing, guys. That's all you need. You don't need a salad. You don't need any bread. You don't need anything, because you already got the starch in the rice, so that serves as your bread. Now, anytime I make this, I always like to serve it with a good glass of white wine, because they say when you eat seafood, you got to do white wine. But if you don't have white wine, red wine is just the same. Thank you for watching, guys. I enjoyed your company, and I'll come back again.